Welcome to episode 159 of the Twim Show. This is your host Sajid Islam, and today I'll be going over the digital marketing updates from the week of May 1 through 5, 2023. And just to be forewarned, today's episode is gonna be 100% focused on Google SEO updates, just because that's what happened this week. Most of the stuff that happened are from the SEO front, on the Google front. So if SEO is something doesn't interest you, then feel free to skip over this episode. With that, let's dive in. Number one, Google has updated their guidance for cross-domain canonicals. That's a mouthful for me, but what that basically means is that canonical is basically you put this canonical tag on a page, and the way it works is that when you put that tag and along with a link, you are signaling the search engine, in this case Google, saying, hey Google, the page that you're about to crawl or about to index is actually a duplicate version of another page on my site or on this site. Right. So usually people use canonical tag to say, hey, if Google, if you're on this page, by the way, this is not the original content. There is another copy. This is a duplicate page of this other content, which is on this link. Now, cross-domain basically means if you have, say, that page on marketandgrow.com and then have the same page on, let's just say, xyz.com. So if you're on two different domains, but the same content appears, then obviously you use the canonical tag, and Google is now saying, hey, if it's cross domains, do not use canonical tag, just use the no index tag. Why they're saying that and what it means, allow me to break it down for you, is that, usually what you do is saying, hey, Google, my site a.com and the site b.com, I'm saying, the page on my a.com is actually a duplicate of the page on b.com, and you reference back and forth, and Google is coming and saying, hey, look, sometimes what happens is, a.com is probably making a copy of that page from b.com, but it's not an exact replica. But if it's an exact replica, then a.com should use the no index tag to signal Google, hey, don't index this page, versus using canonical link only to say that this is not a duplicate copy because maybe the formatting has changed, maybe words have shifted around and things like that. Now, having said that, what should you do? Well, the short answer is it depends, because I really do not know your unique situation, especially if you're a news aggregator where you are, say, for example, Reuters, and then there are things like Yahoo News or Bing News who copies your content, where you don't really have a lot of authority over forcing them to use no index. Maybe it should be part of your part of your agreement, but nevertheless, it all depends on situation by situation, case by case basis. And I think the reason why Google is doing is because they don't want the duplicate content to get indexed and floating around on the internet, which I understand from their perspective. But at the same time, you as the website publisher have a lot of now tracking to do, and it might get a lot of hard for you to do all those things. Now, having said that, again, it depends. Yes, do use no index if you have two primary sites that you control. Definitely, you want to do that. If not, if it's a little bit, if the contents are a little bit different, then what I want you to do is make sure that you're using the canonical tag. If you have any questions, you know who to reach out to. That would be us. Reach out to us and let me know, and maybe I will try my best to answer your question. With that, move on to the next update. This is on structured data. Basically, Google changed their documentation around, and video description used to be a requirement. It should be a mandatory requirement for structured data, but now Google has changed it and moved it into recommended. Having said that, just because it's recommended does not mean you should stop using it. Definitely, the video description is basically, it helps Google's algorithm to understand what the video is all about. I mean, there have been a lot of improvements in AI, and you can see it with ChatGPT, AutoGPT, and all this generative AI that it understands fairly easily. So probably Google is saying a lot of people don't put it. A lot of we have the capacity, our algorithms have the capacity to go consume the video and figure out what the video is all about, and thereby it's removing the requirement. But having said that, you always have more control if you go ahead and put the description to explain what it is about, and then let Google, if they want to process and they want to compare the two and add it, that's fine. But by all means, if you have video on your site and you need to embed structured data, number one. Number two is you want to do it even though it's optional. Right? You want your video to surface. If you have done the hard work of creating a video, you want your video to be surfaced as high as possible on the selected keywords that you want it to rank for. So why not put the descriptions? Okay. Next up, Google has clarified, actually it's Google Search Liaison Danny Sullivan has clarified on EEAT. It seems like a lot of people think EEAT is a ranking fact. It's a ranking algorithm, and Danny came out and says, look folks, EEAT, which used to be EAT, and then the Google added I think last year we covered this on our show. I just cannot remember when it is. I'm bad with dates and specifics, but nevertheless, EEAT stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness. Previously, it used to be EAT, which is expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Now, Google added experience, which is basically they want the user to have good experience on your site. That would basically mean that you don't have it loads fast. You don't have a lot of pop-ups and other stuff. So Danny is again pointing the link to the page, which is really, I'm putting it in the show notes. It's Google's documentation on EEAT, and it's basically saying EEAT is it's basically a concept that's made out of a lot of different signals and factors. So it's not like page load speed and is it helpful content. Helpful content is, by the way, an algorithm. So is it helpful content? Is it let's see, I'm looking at my notes and see, is the author, let me see, is it a content that's produced with people first in mind, rather than is it a content that's produced with SEO engine in mind? So those kind of things. And again, helpful content does actually cover a lot of those stuff, but basically saying, look folks, use that. Don't try to say, oh, EAT is algorithm, EAT, we can game it. Don't do that, and just focus on delivering value and adding content and publishing content that actually makes sense for your users. Okay, with that, let's get to the next one. There are Google's, this was asked during Google's May 23 Google's SEO's office hour Q&A session, where a user was asking, hey, I have 16,000 pages on my site. Seems like it's really taking a long time for Google to index it. It's probably 5 to 10 pages at a time. What can I do to speed up the indexing? Right, it's a great question. 16,000 pages, but remember, in one of our episodes we did also say a site has a crawl budget, and over time that crawl budget will go up, but it's not going to be like as soon as you release 16,000 pages, Google is going to index all 16,000 pages. Now, to that question, or what Gary Ellis has said, that maybe first of all, number one, you have to ensure that you have the highest quality content. And it sounds like a broken record because I just talked about EEAT and we talked about high quality people first content. So again, Gary Ellis is also suggesting the same thing. It's a high quality, possible to increase indexing speed. That's number one. Obviously, if you had to ask me, there are a lot of other tricks. Google approved tricks up on my sleeve. Load time. Making sure you have structured data, things like that, using meta tags, things like that. Okay. Anyway, having said that, what Gary is also alluding to is like maybe after you have done that, you want to promote your content on the social media, right? And get some buzz around it and have a lot of people come to your site, and that will speed up your content indexing. Now, how does this kind of work? Well, allow me to explain, which is, I think what's happening is that reading between the lines, what they're saying is like, when there are a lot of sites, external websites that you don't control is backlinking to your site, and Google sees those traffic coming in, visiting your site, and it kind of picks up. It kind of sends a signal to their algorithm saying, hey, something's going on with this site. We do not know what it is. Maybe, we need to get more of these sites, right, onto our ranking system. So that's what I feel like. But I wouldn't ask you to game this thing because that would really cause you to get banned. But all I will say is like maybe it's not a bad idea to create, if you create a content and it's really good content and you want the world to see and you want it to get indexed. I mean, obviously 16,000 pages is a lot of pages. I'm not sure how this user generated 16,000 pages from scratch. But what I would say is maybe, run a ad campaign, whether it's on Facebook, LinkedIn, and have a lot of people come in, gets a lot of backlinks and a lot of people to talk about it, create some buzz and speed it up. But it's always good to have 10 to 15 or 5 to 10 pages published every day. Slowly release it. And I believe we covered this. Now that I think about it, we covered this about couple of weeks back or maybe more, rather than where you don't want to publish. There is no point on having, I still cannot understand the use case behind having 16,000 pages getting published at the same time, unless it was a site move. We'll see. Anyway, next up, man, I think I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but again, it came up this week, which is should we focus on content quality or posting frequency, right? What's important more to Google? So now this time Google search advocate John Mueller says, look, and this was a candid discussion in Reddit, big SEO subreddit, which is saying, you know what? Forget about keeping up with the frequency where you have to publish 2 blogs or 5 blogs every week. I rather want you to, and John Mueller is saying, I rather prefer that you produce a high quality content over mediocre, fluffy content, which is crap. And this has been very consistent advice coming out of Google, as you see Gary Illyes, John Mueller, and Danny Sullivan. Everyone talks about it, is having high quality content. This is something I've always also preached, where focus on high quality content. At the end of the day, whether you play the SEO game or not, whether you play the OpenAI game or maybe ChatGPT game, you know what? All these things are learning from your content, and the only way they'll learn from your content is if you have a content that is easily digestible, period. You don't want to play the SEO game, that's fine. You want to play the ChatGPT game, guess what? You need to have the content game on. If you don't have the content game on, guess what? You're going to lose out on that game as well. So it's up to you. Now, if you're happy with posting social media content, Facebook every day, up to you. But remember, Facebook content has very short life. And the next thing is you can run ads, but that's not a profitable way. The most profitable way is to build your content game. Okay, next up. This was something very funny where John Mueller is saying, look, you should avoid outdated link building strategies such as SE Nuke and PBNs. Frankly speaking, this is the best part of my job, which for this show is that I get to look up things that I didn't even know existed still. SE Nuke is about 10-year-old, which is basically the concept here is that you basically blast loads of rubbish content all over the internet to get backlinks. Right, and we kind of saw that, and I talked about it in the past, which is a lot of people would go ahead and put comments on wherever they can and put a link to your website, right? And they're thinking it's gonna blah 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 come back to your link. That game doesn't work anymore. John Mueller is totally against it. And the PBN basically stands for Private Blog Network. It's basically a group of websites that only exist to provide backlinks to other websites. Right, and this is the purpose of PBN, obviously, or SE Nuke, is to manipulate Google to improve sites' Google search rankings. PBNs clearly violate Google's webmaster quality guidelines and result in harsh penalties, aka ban. Okay, and I'm pretty sure the same thing happens with SE Nuke. But nevertheless, what's happening is a lot of black hat people, a lot of people are doing it, agencies are selling services with backlink services, things like that, which is really absolutely horrendous. But I just do not know why they would do that, because they would do all this stuff and then they will move on to another project, and here you, the website owner, is sitting on this ticking time bomb, not knowing that you're sitting on a ticking time bomb, and one day you're going to get penalized and you're going to look for a reputable agency and your business is going to tank. I've seen that. Please do not do that. Avoid this link building companies. Yeah, link building does work in the sense you get a lot of traction, but I think this is something that can be done organically. Grow slowly, but grow the right way, because that will ensure that you are successful for the long run. Okay. Next up is again Google. Google is saying, hey, disavowing links based on third-party metrics is a terrible idea. Someone has asked, hey, if one should disavow link based on those pages being under a certain score from a third-party tool. John said no. Now, what are third-party rules? Again, I'm going to take names here, but again, by no means that they do that, because I have not checked. But SEMrush or Screaming Frog might say, hey, you're getting this link from this website and the score is low. The DA score is low, whatever it is, and you probably said 20 and someone told you anything below 50 is bad. You should go into the disavow tool and go ahead and disavow that link. John Mueller is saying, look, that's a terrible idea. You should only use, again, this is something also covered in the past, which is, hey, disavow link should only be used when you have manual action. Right. Other than that, you should not do it. And also John is saying, look, none of this metric is what Google really cares about, as any SEO tool will tell that to make you feel good, give you something. And also there are a lot of SEO practitioners out there who will do that to show how important they are, what a great achievement they've done. They've killed 50 links that had a DA score of 20. Again, I'm just picking things out as fiction. I mean, these are examples. And they're going to make you feel good, right? They will do an SEO audit, say, oh, you have 50 links coming to your site with DA score of this. We're going to clean this up. We're going to clean that up. We're going to do all these things. We're going to create all these backlinks of a DA score of 100, blah, 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 blah. I think you get the point. Okay, let's go to the next point. And somehow it's all lining up. And then the next update was update of this week is like in the SEO office hour, someone asked, hey, if I do have backlinks from a website and that website got penalized, do you think it's going to affect me? So what happened is, again, say you had this shady, dodgy SEO practitioner who came in and created a lot of content through SENuke or PBN network, and a PBN network, I would think you need to go and clean up, and that's the hardest part, because if your person SEO practitioner did that for you, you probably don't have any record of what's happening. That's where you'd probably have to use the third-party tool to kind of find all the content that relates back across the web that kind of points back to you, and that is a hard job, right? And that's that's gonna cost. That's a very expensive job. So coming back, what I'm saying is, if that happens, say a porn site is linking to your content, and that site got, I used porn as an example, and I'm probably not the best example, but anyway, and that site got, somehow got penalized. Does that mean you all will also get penalized? Because sometimes we say we judge a person by the company he or she keeps. So probably is that why? Not so much. Dewey Nugent from the search quality team said, I assume by penalized you mean that the domain was demoted by our spam algorithms or manual actions. In general, yes, we don't trust links from sites we know is spam. So what they're saying is, what Dewey Nugent is saying is, look, we kind of know that any link, if that's a spam site, we know anything that's over there should not be counted. But again, we also know that we are judged by the associations we keep. So the first thing is, if you are hiring any link building companies, number one, you need to know where they're putting the link. Absolutely, you need to have records. And number two, you should be checking out those sites so that you can question that, hey, why are you putting these links? And so if you have a link, you can always go and delete all those things. But sometimes prevention is better than cure. And in this case, that applies, which is you want to stop building artificial links. Okay, this is the last update for this week, where John Mueller has says, sometimes website owners will put coming back soon or under development, under maintenance screens while the site is migrating or they're rebuilding a new site. And John is saying if it's more than a few hours, then then you shouldn't put it up there. Right. If it's for a few hours, for maybe a day or less, maybe you can put a 503. 503 basically means that the server is down temporarily. It's going to come back very soon, maybe under heavy load or something like this. So put that status code up for 503. But if it's more than that, then obviously you shouldn't put a 503 status code. What you should do is you should use other options. Okay, now what are those other options? Number one, I think I would say is like, look, if you're rebuilding a site or you're doing site migration, you should do everything behind the scenes and then just do a DNS cutover. By DNS cutover, what I mean is like, you should have two parallel websites running, and the day you know the new website is completely ready, you should just be able to go to your name records or DNS entries and say, now my new website points to this new website, the new IP versus the old IP. That is the best way. If you were to ask me to do it, I would do that, and that way you make sure that as you cut over from one system to another system, it's seamless, and of course, you don't get affected by indexing and ranking and things like that. But if you put up a generic website saying, my site's down, or maybe I got hacked, and I need to put it back up and things like that. And by the way, talking about hack, this is why you should always have especially if you're on WordPress, you should have a company who is looking after your WordPress install, as well as, you have backup copies, and not just backup copies that are good. You have done disaster migration exercise and things like that. Okay. Having said that, please do not use 503 for something that is more than a few hours, max 1 day, 24 hours. Anything beyond that, I think you will get significantly penalized for using things that you should not be using. John Mueller is coming and saying that this is something in line with what he has said back in 2009, and this is 2023. So wow, man. So it seems like he's on track. He is not changing his things. His advice remains as true today as it was back in 2009. Having said that, folks, that's it for this week in marketing. Thank you for listening. Once again, this is your host Shazid Islam signing off. Until next week, take care. Bye bye.